Okay. Today is the 7th of Teves. We're going to learn chapter 8 of Tanya. So we're going to learn about when forbidden and even permissible indulgences could be atoned for and redirected towards godliness. Well, why would something that's permissible be a problem to begin with? But if you don't eat it or utilize it for the right reasons, then it goes to the other side. What's the other side?
I don't know what the other side is.
Not this side.
The other side.
God's side is godly. The other side is whatever's not godly. Okay, there are forbidden foods. That's why they're called usr. So I was going to say a little story that I heard. There was this. I believe he grew up in South America somewhere. He was a scam artist. He was an imposter, and he what do you call it? He impersonated a Saudi prince. He bought the garb, and he learned the language, and he basically went over there and he was able to scam a lot of the wealthy Saudi folks.
Mm-hmm.
And he did this for a number of years, and he made millions of dollars. So he invested in this and that. He was a slick talker.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come back to Miami and he would do his thing, whatever. Or he would meet them in this country also. At one lunch, his undoing was that he was sitting at a lunch, Steve, and he ordered pork. So they immediately caught on, they were like, this is highly suspicious. So they started doing some investigation. No self-righteous Muslim would ever order pork, even no matter how far from their religion they may have strayed or how observant they were. So they did an investigation. Turns out he's a scam artist. The reason why I bring that up is because a Yid also, sometimes we get involved and we make mistakes, this and that. But no one would say, okay, I want the suckling pig. It's just not something a Yid would do.
You know why you will?
Why? Because it's usr. It's forbidden.
You know why you might? Pressure, social pressure. Makes you do
stuff. You know that famous joke? The guy was away on vacation. He thought nobody was around. Turns out his rabbi was on the same island that he was at. He ordered a suckling pig. It comes with the apple. So his rabbi jumps in front of Harry. What are you doing? Can't eat pig. And he goes, no, I ordered an apple. Look how they dressed it up. I don't know. Okay, you remember that one? Okay.
Well, actually,
even if one ate a forbidden food unwittingly, let's say somebody said this is kosher, you're eating it, and oh, don't eat the food, it's straight, please.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And he did it for the sake of habit, meaning he said a bracha. It's funny, this morning, I wish a friend of mine just turned 50 today, so I wish him happy birthday. I remember years ago, he told me a story that his wife had inadvertently bought some kind of seasoning that after, they checked ingredients, it was like a ranch seasoning and it had dairy in it. So they were seasoning the chicken and they put it in the oven. Now, again, totally inadvertent, but they have chicken and they're putting like cheese on the chicken and putting it in their kosher oven. They have to kasher their oven. It was, so here they ate it. But imagine they said a bracha, they ate it on Shabbos. Seemingly they did all the right things. They had all the right intentions. Okay, the food was usher. The food was forbidden to eat. So here they did it in order to serve God. So had the food been permitted, then the act of eating for the sake of heaven would have sufficed to extract the good from the evil of the food's vitality, as explained above. In this case, however, forbidden food was eaten for the sake of heaven. So what do we do? Sif Hashem. It's a nice song, actually. Let's take it one step further. Even if he actually carried out his intentions, having studied and prayed with the energy derived from the food, he ate the food, he served Hashem, he had energy from the food, he learned the daven because of that energy. Again, had the food. There's a recording, people are on the video. There's a whole group of chevra here. So had the food been permitted and the person studied and prayed with the energy provided by the food, the energy would have been elevated to sanctity. But the food was forbidden. So how do we reconcile this? What do we do? Ein achayis sheba oilo mislabeshes b'seich b'tevois ha'toira v'tfila k'may shehet. The vitality contained in it does not ascend and become clothed, in the words of Torah and prayer, the way it would with kosher food, with permitted food. Because it was held captive. So person did everything right. He didn't know it wasn't kosher. But the learning and the prayer and the good deeds that he did with the energy from the food that wasn't kosher doesn't go up to the highest level that it would have gone up had the food been kosher. Why? Because it was held captive in the power of the other side, the unclean klippos, which do not permit the energy of the food to become elevated to holiness. Even if it was chicken, I mentioned before chicken. Chicken is actually only meat according to the rabbis. Meat is beef or goat or sheep or whatever, but or venison, but not chicken.
Right.
Fowl is not, but the rabbis claim that since it's meat-like, so they put it in the category of meat, so we don't get confused.
Okay.
And it became a statute. It became, written into law. So even if it's a rabbinic prohibition, the scribes are even more stringent than the words of Torah. Therefore, the Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse, and the force that lusts after forbidden things is also one of the other side. And we have to be very careful from this. They therefore lust after forbidden matters, since the forbidden matters derive their energy from these three unclean klippos. Steve, make sense? You could say it's not the guy's fault. He didn't know. Okay, he didn't know, but he still can't elevate that to holiness. Who shade mishadim Yehudim lefi sheyachal lachzer lekdusha deleila. On the other hand, the evil impulse and the cravings and forces after permissible things. So let's say you had a craving for something that's kosher, and you eat it. That, if you didn't have the right intention. So again, there's two scenarios. The first scenario is that you had the right intentions, but it wasn't kosher, even if you didn't know. The second scenario is that it's kosher, but you didn't have the right intentions. So what can you do in the case where the food is kosher? That you could revert back in time. You can literally go back in time. This is like Back to the Future. This is like better than the movies. You could literally do tshuva and realize that, you know what, I didn't have the right kavanah, fix it, and elevate that food that you ate yesterday or last week that you ate with the wrong intentions, with lustful or gluttonous desires. Even though the vitality of permitted foods can be eaten out of bodily desires, nevertheless, he could revert the whole thing back to holiness. It literally can be transformed within your body. It's in your body. It's kosher. It stays. I don't know. You probably know this better than me. When you eat something, it becomes part of you, right?
I hope so, yeah.
It comes into your bloodstream. It gives you energy. You're working out. It becomes part of your muscles.
You work out.
I'm just saying, if you do. Yes, I do. But if you do, then how long does it stay in there? Forever, right? So you can go back in time by v'gam achakach harishimu mimenu nishar davaku beguf. Even afterwards, after the person did shuvah and elevated the energy of the food to holiness, a trace of it remains attached to the person's body. What is that? That klippin sitra. Why? Yes, kimikol maichel mashke nasa takef dama basar psari. Every item of food and drink, once a person ingests, immediately becomes part of his blood and flesh. Becomes part of him, I guess, forever. Since the food which became his blood, flesh and blood was evil at the time of consumption, having been eaten for the sake of bodily pleasures, so a trace, even if you could transform it, a little sliver remains from the unholy side. That's why the body has to undergo, I'm going to call it a cleansing in the grave. A cleansing in the grave? I'm by it. Yesterday we were here, you missed it, but yesterday we said if you're going to a fancy event, you got to wash up first. If you're dirty, you got to scrub clean. Sometimes it hurts. You have something that's really caked on, a permanent marker, you got to really scrub it. And sometimes you can even get like, it hurts.
Because your wife tells you to take a shower.
Right. But I'm saying that's just a shower. But what if you have to really scrub yourself clean? If you work with grease and oil and car engines, and then you got a wedding to go, you got to really scrub that out. It's going to take you an hour in the hot shower. And you got to be cleansed and purified from the uncleanliness. Elim Cain, unless one has never derived enjoyment from this world, meaning either he actually derived no enjoyment or his enjoyment was not of this world at all. Since all his actions were completely for the sake of mitzvahs and holiness, obviously that's the holiest of holy people, the righteous of righteous people can reach such a level. For the rest of us, we got to struggle. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, this was the case of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, of Judah the prince, who said at the time of his demise that he had no enjoyment of this world, even to the extent of his small finger. So now the second half is going to the second part of the 8th chapter, is we're going to learn what is necessary for the rectification of permitted words not spoken for the sake of heaven. And for that, you have to come back tomorrow.
Jesus.
But
I'm not busy.
Say that word.
I'm sorry.
The takeaway is you might have eaten some. I'll give you a little synopsis before you leave. You might have eaten something for gluttonous purposes. That does not mean it cannot have any redemption. We still have an opportunity to elevate it by deciding to use the energy from the food to study Torah. So, Chevra, be careful what you eat. Be careful what you say. If you make a mistake, there's always ways to rectify it, but it's much harder if it's not kosher to be able to change it, because then it becomes a part of you. So, Chevra, do what you can to do the best you can. We're not expecting you to be Yehuda the Nasi, Judah the priest, or Avraham Avinu or Moshe Rabbeinu, but just be you. Be Jack Goldberg. You could be Yaakov ben David, Halevi. You're welcome. Have a good day, Chavra.
I like this.